Welcome to Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. On this podcast, we journey through the devastating experience of the death of a child. Grief is seldom discussed openly in our culture, and the death of a child makes people feel even more uncomfortable. We approach the topic openly and honestly, speaking to people who have lost loved ones and experts who help care for them. Whether you are a parent experiencing loss or someone who wants to support another going through this tragedy, this podcast strives to offer hope and help.
Welcome to episode number 299 of Losing a Child, Always Andy's Mom. I'm Marcy Larson, Andy's mom. I can't actually believe we're at 299. So next week, we'll be doing a special episode, a special 300 live stream. So watch for that. I'm going to do that with Eric and Gwen. I think we're all going to do it together and hopefully have something really fun and special as we look back over 300 episodes of the Always Andy's Mom podcast. It seems like Gwen and I just did the 200th. So it's kind of crazy that it just keeps going and going. But I'm looking forward to that. Right now, I get to introduce you to Michael's Madre. This is Mary Beth. So Mary Beth is certainly not a name that you would expect to be called Madre. And it is a very fun story that we'll get to at the very end when Michael started calling her Madre and his dad Padre instead of mom and dad, which he had done all of his life before that. So anyway, it's a very special story about that. So I want you to listen to the end. But I know you're really going to enjoy listening to Mary Beth talk about Michael. I also want to remind you, if you would like to email me and share your story with me, that would be great. I am not sure how quickly we'll be able to put it on the podcast because, again, we are getting quite the backup of the episodes, but I still love to hear from listeners and would like to get as many people as to be guests on the podcast as would like to be. Right now, I just want you to sit back and enjoy listening to Mary Beth, Michael's Madre. Thank you so much, Mary Beth, for coming on the Always Andy's Mom podcast today.
I'm really happy to be here and honored that you want to hear my story.
Oh, I'm really excited. And I do want to say thank you. I have to start with a big thank you because, you know, I think I might have mentioned this when I was doing an opening a couple weeks ago, but Mary Beth, we booked the podcast and then I get an email back from Mary Beth saying, how much does it cost to produce each episode? Because I want to pay for the production cost for my episode. And that was so sweet because no one has ever asked that before. And so it actually got me thinking. So I had to actually do a little math to figure out what each individual episode costs. And it costs about $125. And so you ever so graciously gave me $125. So this episode is being done with the full support of Mary Beth in honor of Michael. So thank you for that. I just can't tell you how much that does to my heart that you're willing to do that and that you wanted to do that. So that's special. Thank you.
I appreciate what you do and I want to support you because I know you don't get paid a lot. You do this out of the goodness of your heart and your podcast has helped me so much. So I just wanted to give back.
Yeah, well, I appreciate it a lot. And, you know, other people, if they want to do that, if that's their, like, this is the other special thing is that Michael's birthday is just around the corner. It's just, you know, 6 days after Andy's birthday. So Andy's birthday is this coming Monday. Michael's is a week from Sunday. So anyway, it kind of felt right to do that in honor of Michael's birthday too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so if other people would like to sponsor an episode, I would love that. You can just go to the website, andysmom.com, and click on the donate page and be able to do that. So I appreciate it a ton. But right now, of course, I just want to hear you talk all about your son, Michael.
Yeah. He's quite a great kid. He was second of 5 sons.
Wow.
Yeah.
5 boys. Oh my.
So my oldest is Richard and he's 3.5 years older than Michael.
Uh-huh.
Michael was born. It was kind of a hard time because my father was diagnosed with a brain tumor when I was pregnant, glioblastoma.
Oh, wow.
And so Michael was born right before my father died. And so it was like really nice to have something else to focus on.
Right. Right.
He was you're a pediatrician, so you'd appreciate this story about him. But he was I had him at a birth center because I was really into the crunchy granola mom thing.
Okay.
I hope I doesn't offend anybody, but
Yeah. I don't think you could offend somebody if that was you, right? I mean, you're like fully describing yourself that way.
yeah,
So.
like I was really into breastfeeding and attachment parenting and everything. So I had him at a birth center, and I had him in a hot tub, but it wasn't a birthing tub. So he kind of surprised us and came out pretty fast. And so about a week after he was born, he didn't sleep at all the first like week of his life. I was just exhausted because Richard was 3.5, Michael was newborn, and my husband's a pastor. He was in seminary, so like, I was just exhausted. I was like, I just don't know what to do with this baby. And I thought maybe it was something I was eating. And then about 4 or 5 days after he was born, maybe 6 days, he started having this horrible smell coming out of his ear. Like I was like, and Marcy and I were talking before that we're both in the medical field. So I was like, I knew there was something not right with his baby because newborn babies usually smell really good.
Yeah.
And so I said to my mother-in-law, I don't know what to do. I've given him baths and he just smells horrible. And she said, maybe he has swimmer's ear. And I said, what? Swimmer's ear? How could he have swimmer's ear? And she goes, oh, don't you remember he was born in the tub? And I said, yeah.
Oh.
And so I was like, yeah, that could be it. And I even have in his baby book, smelly ear, I wrote down. And good thing it wasn't my first baby because I knew that my first son smelled nothing but that, that joyous,
Right.
poor baby smell. So I took him to the pediatrician and I said, I think he has swimmer's ear. And the pediatrician said to me that pretty much he thought I was crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about? I've never heard of that before. I said, well, can you just humor me and look in his ears? And he looked and he had swimmer's ear in both ears.
Oh my. That's crazy. I have not heard of that from having a tub birth, but I guess it was actually in a regular hot tub and not a birthing tub.
We didn't mean
I could see that.
Yeah, we didn't mean to have him be born in the birthing tub. In the hot tub. It just and so I went back for my 6-week checkup, and I told my midwife, and she said, I think I need to write that up in a journal because she never heard of it. The pediatrician never heard of it.
No.
So I felt so bad because he was probably in so much pain. I don't know if anybody here has ever had swimmer's ear, but it's very painful.
Oh yeah. I've had kids in the office crying. I mean, it's so painful.
Yeah. And I've had it before, and so as soon as we got the drops, he got better, and he still wasn't the best sleeper, but he was better than he was when he was first born. And he loved to be in motion. He never wanted to be still. And I think it might've been because being upright felt better when he had the swimmer's ear. So he loved to be in swings. And when he got to be a little older, Susie had sitting control, maybe 4 or 5 months old. My husband used to like hold him and he would like rock back and forth.
Uh-huh.
He rocked himself all the time up to the end of his life. Like even as an adult, he rocked. I think it was just his way of self-soothing. But when he was a little kid, when he was a toddler, I had a this like chaise lounge in my living room, and if I wanted to take a nap, Michael go sit in the chair, and he would rock in the chair and fall asleep.
Wow.
And he always slept in the bed with us. But then once he got a little bit older, when he was like 8 or 9 months old, he would go in the pack and play and rock against the elastic side of the pack and play, and he'd fall asleep like that. Like Michael would always fall asleep. That's how he'd always fall asleep, even when he was up until he was, I would say, 20 years old.
Really?
Yeah. So he broke as he got to be a bigger teenager and was a large young man. He broke a couple beds, but that was it.
Oh my word.
He was very, very stubborn too. Like you'll appreciate this as a pediatrician because he was when he was like 2 years old. I said to him, Michael, do you want to do this today or do you want to do that today? And he looked me right in the eye and he gave a little lip and he went, do nothing. I was like, okay, child development expert. So what do you mean? I mean, I was a pediatric occupational therapist, so I used to work with kids, and you give him a choice, and you say, do you want to do this?
Yes. That's what I tell people all the time, especially like 2.5. Oh my gosh, it's such a, it's so funny. It's so funny. Like just yesterday, I had a 2.5-year-old, and usually by 2.5, they want to sit up on the exam table. They don't want to sit on their parents' lap for their checkup part. They want to sit on the exam table. And I said, you want to get up on the exam table or something? She was no, and she was so upset. But then I said, "Oh, okay. Well, I'm just going to give you a choice. Do you want to sit on mom's lap in the chair or you want on the big table?" And she looked at me and she said, "Big table." Like, okay. So we went to the big table and she was fine because it was like, should I look in this ear first or this ear first? As long as she got to make the choice on what I did first, she was totally cool. But it does bite you in the butt a little bit when they come back and say nothing.
That's just the kind of kid he was. He was very, very, very smart. I think sometimes he was a little too smart for his own good, and he always kind of came back with these. He always kind of came back with the sharp response, even not in a disrespectful way. It was just, this is kind of how things are.
Right.
So he and Richard were 3.5 years apart, but the two of them were kind of like a pack. Like it was like kind of our family. We had like those two, and then my next son was born not even 2 years after Michael, but it was almost like the next set of kids.
Right.
Because then I had 3 more that were like, so Michael was born in 2002, and then I have a son, Aaron, who was born in 2004, and his son, David, was born in 2005, and Matthew in 2008. So even though the other 3 were so close in age, it was always kind of like Richard and Michael. They were the big kids, even though Michael was,
not, yeah,
2 when Aaron was born. So, but they were like the 2 peas in a pod, and he used to call Richard Bubby. So then all the other kids started calling Richard Bubby. Like that. He's like, so no one ever knew he didn't have a name. He was Bubby. So, and it was funny. Like the other kids always did that, but he was very creative and very deep thinker. And another funny story about how smart he was, but also the way he was. And he and Richard were upstairs one day. I think Michael was maybe 5 or so, and he called down to me and said, "Mommy," and he was like crying. He's like, "Mommy, you gotta come upstairs. Richard's being mean to me." I said, "Well, what's Richard doing?" He goes, "I'm trying to multiply fractions, and it's so fun, and he keeps disturbing me." Like, you're 5 and you're multiplying fractions. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Well, alrighty then.
My kids we're very much a Dungeons and Dragons fantasy family. Like we love Lord of the Rings. When they didn't watch it when they were really little, because obviously it's not really a movie for little kids, but they would love to do the characters, and so Michael would always play the characters in some of the games. Like they had this Final Fantasy my husband used to play. It was like one of the console games, and there were like all these characters on it, and one of them was a guy Oron who had no arm. So Michael used to pretend he was Oron. He was not even 2, and he would stick his arm inside his little overalls to pretend he had no arms. And he would dance around in the music. And so we used to go outside a lot. My kids love being outside, and we live in Maine, near the ocean. So we had a really nice place to live, and we could see the ocean from our house. And we'd go outside, and I would be Gandalf in Lord of the Rings, and I'd have my staff, and Richard and Michael would be Frodo and Sam. Or no, Richard would be Aragorn. We had the big swords.
Okay.
Aragorn sword, and Michael had the little sting sword with plastic. They're plastic. We'd run around outside on our yard, and we'd, pretend we were fighting the monsters. And Michael loved the play weapons. Like he always loved them. For Christmas, even into his late teens and early 20s, he wanted like the live action role playing swords and stuff. They're made out of foam. You get really expensive ones that look real. So he would always want those. And he had a big bucket. He had a computer downstairs in our house. We had a basement with a computer room, and he had a big bucket next to it with all his weapons in it. So he'd sit in his computer playing, and he'd like be swinging around his sword or his mace or whatever. So
that's awesome.
I really like that. So they'd go out even when they were, teenagers. So Michael might have been like 16, 17, and Richard was 20, and the other kids were, teens. They would go outside in the yard, and they'd run around with their play swords and pretend they were fighting each other and stuff. And definitely boys. My house was definitely a boy house, no question.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it sounds like it. Sounds like a pretty fun house too.
Yeah, we had a lot. And my husband is kind of a big boy too. He loves to play with. Always loved to play with them and do things with them. So, they love to talk about their video games, and they talk about the characters, and we used to love to watch Lord of the Rings when the kids got older, when they were old enough to watch it. It's obviously those of you who have little children, it's not a movie for little children. It's for
Yeah.
more like, middle school and older, because it's very violent, but the stories are great. And so we used to watch them, and we had all the extended versions. So Michael and I used to watch them a lot, like, especially in the recent years, we'd like start watching one of them, and we wouldn't watch them all at once because they're like 3.5 hours long each, and there's 3 of them. So we'd start watching one, and then we'd come back and watch it again, and maybe take us, a couple months to get through all of them. Then we'd start again. So
I don't know if you remember me saying this, but that's the last thing that Andy said to me. Was he asked me, he said he wanted to read Lord of the Rings because he'd never read them. I think he had seen the movies, but he wanted to read them because he always picks a book series to read, and that's the one he wanted to read. And I told him, oh, when we get home from the baseball game tonight, they're in the office. I'll get them out for you. And that's the last conversation I had with him. So it's kind of cool that you like that too.
One of the things that made me feel, I console myself after he died. I said, well, he's up in heaven telling J.R. Tolkien he probably should have ended. Probably he didn't like something about Lord of the Rings that he should
have done something a little different.
He was a very, very, very good writer. He loved to write. Ever since he was little, he was a good writer. And the school where my kids used to go had a literary contest every year. And whenever Michael seriously decided to write something, he usually won first place because he was such a good writer. And so more than once he won first prize. And when you win first prize, you have to stand up and read your entry. And the last time he won was when he was a junior. He won. When he was a senior, he didn't do it because it was just COVID, and he was going through some difficult times with, dealing with. He was a senior in high school, and it was 2020. So he didn't enter that year, but the year before, it was either when he was a sophomore or junior, he entered and he won first prize. He got up and read his entry. So, but he was very shy. He was a very good actor. He was a very good singer, but he was shy. He didn't really like to be up in front of people. Like Richard, my oldest, was kind of the always look at me, and Richard was a really good actor too, but he loved to perform. But Michael just didn't. He always got a good part if he auditioned. Like he was in a couple plays in school and performances, but then he was always nervous. And by end of high school, he didn't really want to get up and perform or be in front of people. But he was beautiful. Like had the white blonde hair. My hair. This is not my natural hair color. I have very dark hair naturally. My husband does too. And Michael was born with almost no hair. And then all of a sudden, 6 months old, like all this white hair started popping out of his head. And like he was platinum blonde from the time he was 6 months old and he was about 6. And he had like huge blue eyes. He was just beautiful. I mean, he looked like a model. He could have been a model if it wasn't for the D Nuttin. I always said it was a good thing he was so cute because I don't know if I could have. He was very difficult to deal with sometimes. But he was just such a beautiful child, but he was also just such a sweet kid, and he was very caring. And he loved to be outside. As I said, he loved the beach. We live near the beach. This is our 3rd location that we've lived in Maine since I had kids, and we've always been near the ocean. And I live near Bar Harbor, which is not, if any of you've been to Acadia National Park that listening to me, I live very close to there. So I'm right on like the craggy Maine coast, and it's just beautiful. I love the ocean too. I think I have salt water in my veins. Michael loved the beach, and he had a job when he first started college. He had a job in our town. We live really close to the beach, a different beach in Maine, and he used to have a job cleaning the beach. Like his job was just to walk up and down the beach all day and pick up garbage.
Oh,
and he loved it. He loved it.
Right.
All he did was walk up and down the beach all day, and like we have about 4 or 5 different beaches in our town, and he had to go to all of them every day. So he'd like start at one end, go to the other, and then go back to the other end. There wasn't a lot of garbage because they're not really public. I mean, they kind of are, but they're not state beaches. So not a lot of people come except for people that live in Massachusetts or, it's not like people all over. And so they're pretty clean. So there's not that much to pick up, but he'd take his garbage bag and he'd have his bright vest on. He'd walk up and down. Our beaches have piping plovers, which are endangered. One of his jobs was to help monitor them and to protect them. And he actually did an independent study in college about them for one of his biology classes. So he would say to people, he was very shy, but if somebody was doing something on the beach that would hurt a piping plover, he would not have any problem going right up to them. He said, I was on the beach and this guy had his dog off a leash, and I went up to him and told him, you have to put your dog on a leash. And he said, who are you to tell me? He said, well, I can tell you, or the police can tell you, and they'll charge you $10,000 fine. So your choice. The guy's like, okay, and put the dog back on the leash. So
Wow.
he loved the birds, and he loved wildlife. And he ended up when he went to college, he was a biology major, and so he took classes. Of course, being a biology major, you have to learn some environmental biology, and he had classes where he didn't go to college near the beach, but they was near the woods and the forest, so they would go out in the forest and find things, and he loved that. He loved wildlife and all that stuff like that. So
And he's a musical guy too, you said, right?
yes, so he's very musical. He played the trumpet. So he started playing trumpet when he was in our school. They started playing in fourth grade. They started. So I remember. I think you had somebody on here before talking about middle school band kits.
Uh-huh.
I remember that a couple months ago or something. I think didn't you have a music teacher?
Yes,
Oh.
I did. I had a music teacher on.
And I was thinking, oh, I remember those days because I had 3 kids in the middle school band practicing all their instruments. And um,
Wow.
so but he liked the trumpet, and he used to play it. We had someone in our church who was a really good trumpet player, so we actually hired her to give him private lessons, and they got really close, and he got really good, and he gained a lot of confidence. And so he didn't really like to perform in plays, but he loved to perform the trumpet. So he was in marching band as he got older, into his senior year, into his upper years in high school. He was one of the best trumpet players. So in our town, we have a Memorial Day parade and a service at a cemetery in our town, and it's to honor the military veterans. And so it was kind of an honor that every year one of the trumpet players got to play taps. And so I think it was his junior year and senior twice he got to play the trumpet at the we have like a tomb of an honorary soldier.
Sure.
I don't know if they know who it is there, or just like an honorary thing to honor all the military people. And so he got to play the trumpet. And then we have another town right near there, Gunquit, Maine. Maybe some of you've heard of it, but so they have a bridge where they march there too, and then they do a ceremony where they throw the wreath into the water to symbolize the honoring the troops, or the people that have fallen in battle. And so he got to play the trumpet there too. So it was really nice. I think I have video I'm going to send to you to put on Instagram of him playing the trumpet at that.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So all my kids are very musical. They love to sing. My husband was going to be an opera singer, so we're very musical in our family. So
That's awesome.
it's but he didn't like to, like, if we sang as a family at church, because my husband's a pastor, I said, so he didn't always want to sing with us. It took a lot to talk him into getting up there, but he did play taps. 2020, we all know the world shut down, and so we were all, we were having church on Zoom, and so Memorial Day Sunday, I said to Michael, I said, would you be willing to come into church and play the trumpet on our video? And he did. So we have a video of that too, where he came in and played the trumpet at church so that we could honor the fallen. So he was really kind-hearted that way. Like I think a lot of his issues were, as I'll talk about, he had some serious mental illness, and it was a lot more serious than we knew. But I think a lot of that shyness was that. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So do you want to start talking about that a little bit now?
Yeah. So when he was a senior in high school, 2020, he really started showing signs of like kind of depression, and he was very anxious. So we thought maybe he had social anxiety, and we're helping him decide where to go to college. And he didn't really want to go to college because he was afraid to go away he didn't want to. There was not really any colleges near our house that he could get to easily, like that he wouldn't have to drive, at least half an hour. He didn't really want to drive, and so we said, well, why don't you go to college near Grammy and Grandpa? My kids are very close to my husband's parents, and they live pretty much on the edge of a college campus in Maine. So I said, you can go to college there and live with them. And he said he thought that was a good idea. So my husband and I said, well, let's have him go there. And because of COVID, even though they require people living on campus freshman year, I wrote an email and I said, I don't want him living in the dorm because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And his grandparents live pretty much practically on the campus. It's like they have their own private property, but it's like next door to campus buildings. So so they said he could live with them, which was really nice because he never would have lived in a dorm. He just didn't. We thought he had a lot of social anxiety. So, and my mother-in-law said he was, when he started college, he just didn't even want to go in the classroom. So he of course, everybody was wearing masks, and it was just a hard time, but he got better at it. He got used to it, and so his freshman year in college, he was doing pretty well. His kind of the depression and social anxiety seemed to have subsided somewhat, but it was still there to some extent. And then the first summer after second year, he had some issues where he was, really showing signs of kind of more severe mental illness. So I had him go to his doctor, and he talked to his doctor, and he got on medication for anxiety, and he started going to counseling, and it like worked. And he was on a very low dose of like anti-anxiety medicine, and it was like magic. He was like a different person.
Wow.
Sitting, coming to the table and we were eating and not worrying, like, I mean, not, he'd come to the table when we were with as a family, but like if anybody was visiting, he didn't always like to be around. He wanted to kind of be, but he came, he wanted to go out with us in the summer and do stuff. And he worked at a pizza place, and he, interacted with the tourists. And he, like I said, then he worked at the beach. He was doing an internship where he was taking care of the birds. Things looked really great. And then as he got into his junior year and senior year, things got even better. Like he lost a lot of weight. He was kind of overweight and didn't feel really good about his body, I don't think, or his himself, but he started losing weight, and he lost like 50 pounds, and he was very handsome. So he like started dressing better. He was doing really well in school. He was probably one of the top students they had. And so much so that the summer before his senior year, he got chosen for a very prestigious internship at Mount Desert Island Lab. So he was like doing a biology research with a, really well-established,
Wow.
famous guy who does anti-aging stuff with zebrafish and like, all this stuff. But
wow.
So he went and stayed there at the lab, which was, he had his own room, but he stayed at the dorm, and he went there he said he was going to just come home every weekend and just stay at the dorm during the week. But then he ended up staying a lot because they were doing fun things, and he like made friends there. And he was super excited about his senior year because he was like excited about, he was going to couldn't wait to take biochemistry, but then they ended up not having it. So he couldn't take it, but he was taking like all these really high level classes, genetics, and he was so excited to explain to me how the COVID vaccine worked because he was learning about genetics, and he was very intelligent. But he was starting to get a little anxious because he was so smart. People kept approaching him and be like, "Oh, are you going to apply to PhD programs next year?" And he was like, "I don't think I could do that. I don't know if I could do that." So we said to him, you don't have to do that. You could just get a job, and you could even get a job near home and live with us if you want. But he was, he was kind of nervous about college ending, but he was really happy. Like the semester of college, he was living with my in-laws, and my mother-in-law said he would just like bound down the stairs like, "I love school. It's so great. I'm learning so much." And then he seemed good, and we had Thanksgiving. All of us were together, and then a couple weeks later, I had to take my father-in-law to Boston for a medical procedure, and my in-laws and I stayed overnight, and we came back, and we found him dead. He shot himself, and we were like, I mean, I saw him the day before. He drove my in-laws to meet me so I could take them to Boston, and he took my car back, which normally would have been stressful for him. He didn't like to drive other people's cars. He didn't like to drive my car because I had the one with the push button, and he didn't like that because different than turning the key on. I found him, and I tried to do CPR because he was down. I didn't know. At first, I didn't know what was going on because I just found him on the floor, and he was freezing cold. So I knew it wasn't good, but I was like, well, maybe I can bring him back. So I pulled him out. I mean, he was, probably 225 pounds, 6-foot man. I pulled him out and started doing CPR, but his mouth was like, his tongue was sticking out, and I couldn't get an airway because it was like, so, I mean, right then I knew, but like my brain was just like, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do what I can do. And I told my mother, I'll call 911 and tell them to hurry because I can't get an airway. And as soon as they got there, obviously it was too late. But it turned out that he had we think a psychotic break. So yeah. I read a bunch of stuff in his computer after he died, and he was taking creative writing, and he was taking forensic psychology, which he loved, forensic psychology, but he wrote a letter to one of his teachers about a week before he died, and he told my mother-in-law he wrote a letter, but he never sent it. And it said that, so he was taking creative writing, and he was writing a story about the story that he had written in high school, and it was kind of a dark story about a man who becomes obsessed with a girl, and he like took it back out and started writing more of it, and he was such a creative writer that he like made it like deeper and darker, and then he heard about in forensic psychology about people that hurt other people, and so he wrote a letter to his teacher saying, I think I'm one of those people because I can't tell the difference between the character in my story and me. And I'm afraid that so the other thing he said, I'm a Christian and I love God. And I know that if I don't, I'm either going to kill somebody else or I'm going to kill myself.
Wow.
And so I think I mean, this is all our speculation, but I think what was happening was I think a lot of his mental illness was not necessarily anxiety, but maybe he was starting to get schizophrenia. And because he was at the perfect age, he was 21. He was very intelligent, highly creative, which, as a doctor, is of the three of them risk factors or diagnostic criteria or whatever. So and I also have severe mental illness and schizophrenia in my family. So I don't think it was something he necessarily planned. I think
No.
it was because it was the weird thing was, so my father-in-law had bought him a shotgun for Christmas, and he was gonna take him and teach him how to use it. And he had it. My father-in-law had it in his room, and Michael was like excited to learn how to use it, but nothing nothing weird about it. Like he was just like, oh yeah, we'll go shooting after Christmas. And Michael was like, okay. My in-laws have guns in their house, but they never keep them bullets with the guns or anything. But that night he like ripped open, which is very unusual to him. He never, like in my in-laws' house, he always was very respectful of their stuff, and like he never took things that weren't his. Like even when he wanted to have something to eat, he'd be like, Grammy, is it okay if I have such and such? Like he would never go in my father-in-law's room and take something of his if he was in his right mind.
Right.
Which is, so it wasn't his yet. My father-in-law was going to give it to him, but he knew it wasn't his yet. But he went into his room, tore open the box, and then he ruffled through my father-in-law's drawers, which was really weird. And he found some really old bullets that my father-in-law didn't even remember that they were there. And he put them in the gun and stuck it in his mouth.
Wow. I'm so sorry.
And it was really awful. It was the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But because there were, I don't know how much I can talk. I guess you can cut this out if it's not something you put on your podcast. But they were small caliber, so they didn't have an exit wound. And so we didn't know what happened at first. Like, I thought maybe he had a seizure, maybe he hit his head. Like I didn't know what happened. I couldn't see anything except for he had an allergic reaction. I mean, his tongue was sticking out, so it could have been like, I thought, I came up with all these things in my head. Of
course you did, because you didn't know.
Because I couldn't possibly imagine that that's what it was. So they took him to do an autopsy, and they couldn't. They shaved his head, and they couldn't find an exit wound. So they said, oh, maybe he didn't, use a gun. And I was all hopeful. I'm like, I mean, not that anything's. Right. I said maybe he just had a heart attack or seizure. I mean, not a heart attack. He's 21, but then they took him and did a more invasive autopsy and found the wound in his mouth.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like one awful thing after another. But I mean, when we found what he wrote, we almost thought he was like a hero because he didn't want to hurt anybody else. He'd rather take his own life than hurt anybody else.
Yeah. So
even though it doesn't really better, I think of him as a hero, and because you always hear about these horrible shootings, and people go and they have severe mental illness, and nobody knows until they've shot a bunch of people.
And he was worried about that. Mm-hmm.
And I think that even if he hadn't died, he would, like, whatever was coming on him, he would have been the same person. I think he would have not. I mean, it would have been. It would have taken his. I said mental illness killed him, and it would have killed him either fast or slow.
But it did it fast.
And obviously, I would do anything I could to help him and have him still here. But he would not have been. He was very independent, and he was very private. He didn't like. I'm not surprised he didn't send that letter. I'm surprised he wrote it, and I'm not surprised he didn't send it, because we found a lot of things on his computer of his private thoughts, and I mean, I kind of felt. I didn't really want to feel like I was like intruding on him, but we had to try to find answers. So we read a lot of stuff.
Sure.
He was suffering a lot for years, but he never let anybody know. And we were there. He's got 4 brothers. He's got grandparents that are there. His parents. He just didn't want anyone to know. He said in his letter, I don't want anybody to know about this. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, Mary Beth, that's so much. So hard, so much.
Yeah. So hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only been a year and a half, not even a year and a half. So
yeah. So you want to talk about your grief journey a little bit and what that's been like?
Yeah. So I think that I can't believe that I'm where I am now. Like, obviously when it first happened, and I know I've heard you talk about it, and I'm never going to be able to survive this. And
yeah, right.
Am I ever going to get through it? And I am a strong Christian, and so the first thing I did was just go into the Bible and start reading it. And I don't even know what to do. So I just would open it up and start reading, and that helped me a lot. And I decided in 2024, which is the first year after Michael died. He died in December of 2023. So we just finished 24. I read through the entire Bible. So because after he died, I said, I'm just going to start reading from Genesis. Just open the Bible and start reading it. So I actually read through the whole thing. It was the first time in my life I ever read through the whole Bible in a year, but I did. And I also bought the book Imagine Heaven, which was really helpful to me. I don't know if you ever read that book, but
No, I haven't.
it's really good.
It might be in my stack. I should look at. There's quite a few in my stack that I haven't read. So
I'm reading it again now. I read it. So my husband and I were both obviously totally devastated and just like in shock. And so I bought the book and I just started reading it out loud to him. Like I read it. Like that was like our time together. It's like all we could do was just like sit there and cry. And I'd read the book, and it's such a beautiful book. It's like so hopeful. It's about people that have had near-death experiences, and even people that have never known anything about Jesus or the Bible or God. They all have very similar stories, and so it was just helpful to imagine him in heaven. And another thing that's really another kind of cool story is, so my son Aaron, who's the right after Michael, is a really good drawer. So I asked him after Michael died if he would draw a picture. You know that picture you've ever seen of people like the first day in heaven and Jesus is hugging them? So Michael, in fact, I'll send it to you when I send pictures, but Aaron drew a picture of Michael getting hugged by Jesus.
Oh,
it's a beautiful picture. And then my husband kept saying, oh, I wish he could come back. I wish he'd come back. Like we all wish he could come back. There's not a bereaved parent that doesn't wish they could come back. So Aaron drew this cartoon, and it was like Jeff lying on the couch saying, God, please bring him back. Please bring him back. And his prayers going up to heaven, and the phone ringing and Jesus answering the phone. And he said, hello. And Jeff's like, can you please bring Michael back? And he said, let me go ask him. And so Aaron has like these cartoon squares, Jesus walking over. And Michael, as I said, he loved to pretend to fight with the sword, and he loved all that fantasy stuff. So there's a big sequence of Michael, someone standing fighting this big dragon with like a fencing mask on. And so it turns out the person walks over and they take their mask off, and it's Michael. There's Jesus saying, Michael, do you want to go back? And he said, I'm good. And that's the cartoon that Aaron drew. And that's what Michael used to always say whenever he didn't want to do something, or anytime he'd say, Michael, do you want to do something? I'm good. Like, even as an adult, like if he didn't want to do something, he's like, I'm good. So, we try really hard to, that's a long story about my grief journey, but we've tried really hard to picture him in heaven and in a better place. And I try to honor his sacrifice. One of the reasons I want to come on your podcast is I feel like I want to really help other people who are just at the beginning, because what I remember at the beginning, I thought I'm never going to get through this. And people say they do. And I'm like, how do they do it?
Yeah.
And it does get better. Like, I mean, it's always terrible. There's always days where you're great and I'm falling apart. But, I function. I go to work. I have a pretty high demand job, and I have 4 other kids, and my youngest is still in high school. So we're very busy. We have all the activities and sports, and I get through the day, and I try to appreciate every day. Like, there's something I can be thankful for. So I think that really helps. But
well, that's beautiful.
I think a lot of people say that. That's one thing I heard from a lot of parents is like, you got to see what you still have that's positive and what the gifts you still have. So, I mean, even if it's just the sunrise over the ocean, like I can see the ocean from my house. So like in the morning, I could see it this time of year because there's trees don't have leaves on them. But yes, those of you that live in the South, we don't have leaves yet. It's almost May. So, even if I just see the sun coming up, or when I see the clouds, sometimes we have really beautiful skies in Maine. It's just, I don't know if it's because we're so close to the horizon. I don't know, whatever. But I was just trying to look at the clouds and just be thankful for even if I just see a beautiful clouds, or even if I'm feeling awful, I'm like, there's got to be something. I have hot water in the shower when I turn it on.
Right. Even the little things, right?
Yeah. Like my bed, like at night when I'm so exhausted. And yesterday, my youngest son had to track me, and I was running around in the high winds, chasing after where he was. And I was so tired. And when I got home, and my body just hurt from the wind, and I think just grief makes you hurt. I know people have talked about that. And as soon as I got in bed, I was just like, oh, I'm just like in a bed that's comfortable, Thank God for that. I'm not like laying on a ground on leaves and sticks,
Right.
I think anybody who's at the beginning, rarely beginning of your journey, I'd say go back to whatever your true north is, like whatever is most important to you, and then just be thankful for every little thing. The fact that you probably have food in your house, and after Michael died, we had so many people that brought us food and brought us stuff, and I'm sure that a lot of people have had that experience where one of my friends that I barely I only knew her for a few months because I just moved where I live now, and she put this big blue like Tupper, the Sterilite container, those big huge ones, the big tote thing on my porch, and she just said, put a sign saying the Pat Notes need something. If you want to leave something, just leave. Like nobody like ran about to bother us. They just, so a lot of times I'd come out at night or in the afternoon, and I'd open it and there'd be dinner in there. Or like I remember he died like 2 weeks before Christmas, and I was like, oh, Christmas is just hard. And I opened up the tote and somebody had left warm cinnamon rolls on the porch, So, it's just people come together and help you. And I just try to be thankful for all that. And I read a lot. I've probably read 10 or 15 books about, grief, and probably more than that. I don't know, I read a lot of books, but I listen to podcasts. Like your podcast is really helpful. I also listen to Self-Brain Surgery. Dr. Lee Warren, he helps a lot. He talks a lot about, he was a bereaved father. I listen to While We're Waiting, which is also a really good podcast. And I really want to go to that Luella's Lodge. I saw that you talked about.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I kind of want to do that at some point. My dream at some point is to maybe start something like that, or maybe partner with someone who already has something, so I could do like some kind of retreats for bereaved parents. Because where I live in Maine, there's not a lot. I have a friend who sadly lost a daughter at 4 from cancer, and she kind of started something, and she was like one of the first people I texted. I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I really think reach out to people that that might have lost a child and they're a little bit ahead of you in the journey, because
yes,
being that little light in the tunnel. And I've heard you talk about this on your podcast. Like if you have somebody that's a little bit ahead of you, it just makes such a difference. Even if it's only a few months. Like someone I know unfortunately lost an infant 6 months after Michael died, and a good friend of mine, and like I was not that far ahead, but I was just enough far ahead that I could be a little bit up for them.
Right. That she can look at you and say, Mary Beth is doing it.
I'm still
Mary Beth is doing it. Maybe I can too. That's always, I would say. For me, it's my friend Stephanie, who's about almost exactly a year, 13 months ahead. And I would always think, Stephanie's doing it. I can too.
Right.
I mean, and it wouldn't be like, I'm going to for sure. It'd be like, well, Stephanie's doing it, so maybe I can. Like, it just gives you a little bit of hope that maybe you can, even though truly in your heart of hearts, you're not quite sure yet that you can. But at least it gives you a little glimmer of, she can do it. Maybe I can too.
I know. I'm still not sure I can do it. It's been almost 18 months. I think it's an ongoing thing. And like you said, you're what, 6 years out now?
Mm-hmm. Yep. 6.5.
I think that people that are 20 years and 30 years out, I know. It's just day by day. It's like
and you have to think day by day, because I tell you, I mean, me thinking more than about a week ahead at the beginning was completely overwhelming. If someone would have asked me where I was going to be 6.5 years from then, I would have completely lost it. I mean, the idea of having to live, honestly, for 6.5 more years was just overwhelming, right? And now I have, because you do it a day at a time. I mean, a minute at a time sometimes.
I think about that when people that you have on with like really young children and like in their 20s, and I'm like, how could I mean, I'm in my 50s. I'm on the other end towards 60 now. I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to live like 20 or 30 years. Like I can't imagine living like 40 or 50 years. And it's.
But yet you do. Yet we do.
Dude, I'm like, it's been almost a year and a half now. I say that. I'm like, I can't believe it's been that long, but.
Right.
On the other hand, it seemed like yesterday. So.
I know. I remember, I had someone on a long time ago, and they went, that's a neighbor came to them and started talking to them, and she said, when did your child die? Because she, of course, had no idea that she had a child die. And I remember the response was like, because I think it had been like 20 or 30 years. So it was like 30 years, last month, last week, yesterday. I mean, it was like, because it's been decades, but yet some days it feels like it was just yesterday.
I think that's a good thing about reaching out to people who've been through it and who are longer ahead of you, because
Right.
you feel I can't tell you how I usually listen to your podcast on my way home from work because I have a long commute, and I'm like, "Oh my god, that happened to me too. That happened to me." Like, you feel normal
Mhm.
that that you've that you experience these things, and I'm so thankful to hear that other people have too. It's not just me. Like,
Right.
just could happen anytime where you just let this grief come over you, and
Right.
just it's kinda like a chronic illness. You just kinda like, "Okay, well, I'm having a flare up today.
Right.
I'm gonna just, like, take it today and get through it, and hopefully I'll feel better tomorrow." And I think that's another thing is, like, it's kinda like when you're in a lot of pain. Obviously, you're in a lot of emotional pain, but, like, if you're in a physical pain, if you have, like, a injury and, like, if you have 5 minutes or 1 minute or 30 seconds where it doesn't hurt,
Yeah.
kinda like that when you with this, it's like, "Oh my god, I have a day where I actually feel pretty good." Like, I'm kinda happy today, and the sun is shining, and I'm at my son's track meet, or I'm at, a family event, and, so you can enjoy things. Like, I people who are, don't feel guilty about enjoying life, and you honor your child by living on, and I don't think any of our children would want us to not.
No. No. Definitely not. But I also say too that they would understand that we are sad too. So because I don't appreciate when people who aren't bereaved tell
Uh,
me how Andy would want me to feel.
yeah.
Because that's hard too. Like Andy would want you to be happy. Like I know that. I mean, but it's different if you have a bereaved person tell you that when you have a non-bereaved person tell you
Right.
that, right?
And I mean, I think that your kids, they don't know them. Like, people that don't know your kids, they don't know how they were and what they would think. I don't even know exactly how they would think.
Right.
He's another person. Well, Michael was an adult. He was 21, but they have their own thoughts and feelings, and you're right. It's like, that's the thing about when people say stuff. I know you guys have talked about that before, but like, people say things, and I just, at this point, I'm just like, whatever. I just don't even acknowledge it anymore. Like, people just say things, and it means they don't even know what they're talking about.
No, I know.
It's so hard, and I'm a year and a half out,
Which is still early. Early. Yeah.
but I think a lot of people think you should be over it. Like, oh,
Yeah, I know.
they forget that you've had this happen, and
No, I know. I 100% right. I think that's why a lot of times for me I felt like the second year was more difficult than the
yeah,
first year because the support is not there as much. And you start to realize this is real. This is really what it is. I think the numbness goes away. You're starting to go through holidays the second time, right? We talked about Andy and Michael's birthdays coming up. Well, this is the seventh birthday now without Andy. This is your second birthday without Michael. I mean, that first one, you just like, okay, I just need to get through this. And then the second one, you realize I have to do this again and again and again,
I know.
right? I just think it changes. The second year, when you start going through these things, you realize like, this is happening every year. We have to do this again and again because the first time is I just need to get through it.
Yeah,
Let's find something we're going to do to honor Michael, to honor Andy.
yeah,
We're going to get through this day. And you just kind of think you're just plowing through that year. And once you hit that point, things will start to feel a little lighter. And when they don't automatically feel a little lighter, that's hard.
yeah. And I think that, like, the first anniversary, I was dreading it so much, and
Mm-hmm.
the day after, I think I heard you talk about this with people too. Like, the day gets here, and you're kind of like, well, it doesn't really feel very different than any other day because every day is hard.
Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
I kind of had this in my head that I was gonna feel better after the first anniversary for some reason.
Right.
Like, oh, I got through a year, but you're right. It's like, it's just gonna be every year, and then, of course,
And I think there's so much anticipation to that,
yeah,
which honestly, I feel like the days before and the days after can actually be worse than the actual day. Because the actual day, a lot of times you get a plan, you have things you're going to do. The days building up to it, you're just like a wreck and a mess and just tense. And then afterwards, I'm just drained. I feel like there's nothing left.
yeah,
Right? I mean, and I think it's so funny because I think my coworkers have noticed that about me too. So, Andy's birthday's Monday. I'm not working Monday. Fortunately, I actually do not work on Tuesdays anyway. I work Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. So I've got until Wednesday, which is good. Now I almost need to look this up. I know that that anniversary of Andy's death this year is on a Friday. I don't work Fridays. But the managing partner at the office has changed my schedule for me not to work Thursday because she knows I'm pretty much a hot mess on Thursday too. So she's like, hey, would you work Tuesday that week instead? I don't know if she really needed more help on Tuesday or not. I don't think really, or she made up a different day. I don't know what she did, but I'm not working Thursday because I think she starts to realize it's not just the day. There's the build up to the day and the kind of crash after the day. So, I mean, this is beautiful for me now with this birthday on Monday. I worked last night and now I have Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. And I feel like, okay, I'm going to need that though. I'm going to need that time because it's just these days are hard.
Yeah. And Michael's birthday last year was a Saturday.
Uh-huh.
And I remember thinking, well, I'm glad that next year it's Sunday because I don't have to work. And of course, my husband does because he's a pastor. But I don't want to say his go to heaven day, his heavenly birthday.
Yeah.
So it was a Tuesday, and then the first anniversary was a Thursday because of leap year. And I have a class that I teach, a 3-hour class that this year was on a Thursday. And so I took the day off, but I gave my students something to do independently. And then we moved that class to Friday. So in the fall this year, it's going to be Friday. I'm like, oh God. So now I'm going to have to do the same thing because I know I'm not going to be there because it's going to be Friday. But it's going to be Friday, and then I have the whole weekend after his going to heaven day. But then it's Christmas like a week and a half later. So that's, I know, I think, isn't Andy's in November, you said?
No, Andy's is August, actually.
Oh, August.
Right before school started, August, yeah.
So, it's people that have anybody that, it's the holidays is never going to be the same.
Oh, sure.
And I always kind of dread them anyway because it's so much work. Like Christmas is so much work when you have kids, especially a lot of kids. And, I'm like, Christmas has always been hard just because it's a lot of work. And then my husband's a pastor.
Well, I was going to say, I think for you, especially because your husband's a pastor, I mean, that's a lot.
And I'm a college professor, so the week before Christmas is really busy, and the week of Michael's birthday, like this week and next week are going to be two of the busiest weeks because of the end of the semester, we're giving final exams, all the stuff for graduation. So it's like Christmas is the end of the semester in the fall, Michael's birthday is the end of the semester in the spring. I'm like, oh,
yeah.
I gotta like have some downtime, but
yeah.
Summer's coming, which those of us who live in the northern part of the northern hemisphere know that it's very short but beautiful. So I can try to
appreciate it.
But it is hard. But you're right. Like the second year, I remember hearing people. One of my friends who lost a daughter in 2020 told me she goes, it's going to be the worst second year. And I'm like, it can't be worse. It can't possibly be worse. Like how could it be worse than right now? And so then I got it in my head. Like one of the things about listening to a lot of other people is you hear these things and you're like, it's going to happen. It's like, I knew the first anniversary was going to be bad. I knew the holidays were going to be bad. I knew his birthday was going to be bad. And then I was dreading the whole second year because everybody said the second year's worse. So, it's just, I don't think it's ever good.
No. And for you, it may be, it may not be. I mean, different people are different, right? I mean, you feel like you're on a better trajectory now. I feel like I was probably at my low at 18 months and you're at 16 months and I feel like you seem like you're maybe past your low. So that means that we're not all the same, right? Yeah. We're not all the same.
Yeah. So, I think it's, I mean, it comes and goes. Like you said, it's never, but I do think part of because I have 3 younger kids and like right now my focus is I got to get them through college. Like I have 2 of them in college right now. One is a junior in high school. And so like, I'm just focused. I have to keep thinking so I could pay for college.
And sometimes that may mean that you are not putting as much into your grief as maybe you should. And that may mean that you will have a time later on. Like, for example, I think I've been talking about this lately on the podcast. My daughter obviously, she graduated also in 2020. She went through a lot of stuff. And really, truly now, we're 6.5 years out. She's really working on her grief for the first time. I mean, she's grieved. She's done a lot of stuff, but there were some things that were kind of packed away that she wasn't ready to deal with. And I've talked to a dad. I remember talking to a dad many years ago now who said he piled away his grief for 10 years before he really, really started working on it. So you unpack it and you work through it when you can. Yeah. And if you're at a point that you can't do that right now, that's okay. I mean, my therapist tells me all the time, like when I'm going through a hard time and really, really challenging, she'll say, okay, you know what we're going to do? We're going to pack that up in a box. We're going to pack it up in a box, and then I'm going to see you next week, and we're going to unpack that box and go through things. But, you know, there's certain times when you can't really get into that box really deep.
No.
And that's all right.
Yeah. And I think that's helped me. And I mean, I am trying to work on it. Like I said, I listen to a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, right. And you work at it as you're able, right? And there are other times that you can't, right? You know, right now you're trying to work on end of semester stuff, and like that needs to take a little bit of a back seat for a little bit, but you know you've got times when you can pull it out. Right. On the way home, you listen to a podcast, you pull out the grief, you grieve then, right?
I remember hearing, I was listening to the podcast this week, and one of the ladies said, she was talking about her daughter, and she said, I have certain, like if it was me, I have Michael time. Like there's there's time, like at night, I'll just say, this is Michael time. I'm just going to like grieve, and then I'm going to sleep. And it helps because like, I think I've heard you talk about that with somebody. Like sometimes you just have to, you have to like wait certain times of the day. You can't, you have to live your life and you have to function. At least I have to. I mean, I know that not everybody can, but like I have to. And so I have to pack it away and do my job. And it does help me that I have my other kids to focus on. And I have this goal, like, okay, I have 5 more years. All of them will be out of college. So it's like, and I can get my RV and drive around and look at the ocean and cry. So
right. Yep. And maybe you will.
RV and drive around and sit at go to like my husband won't be able to retire yet because he's younger, but when he retires, we're going to get an RV and drive around and look at the ocean.
Beautiful. Okay, you have one more story that I forgot to ask you about because right before we started, I got an email from you asking if I could change the name of the episode from Michael's Mom to Michael's Madre.
Oh, yeah.
And that you would tell me the story that I totally forgot to ask you. So what's the story? Why are you Michael's Madre?
So
people would not expect that listening to your main accent.
No, I'm not Spanish. Michael took Spanish in middle school. He started taking Spanish when he's, I think, 7th grade. He took Spanish like 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. He took like probably 3 or 4 years of Spanish. He loved Spanish. And so when he started taking Spanish, he started calling me Madre, and he called my husband Padre. So this was, he was probably 14, 15. So this is 6 or 7 years. It was a long thing. And so all my other kids, well, not my oldest, he was above that because he's older.
Right.
All the younger kids call us Madre. And so to this day, 2 of my sons always call my husband and me Madre and Padre. And it kind of is like our way of honoring Michael. So
I love it.
I knew when I as soon as I heard your podcast, like the first time, which was probably almost a year ago, I said, I'm going to be on her show sometime. And when you had someone on who had a child with the same name, you said someone's mom instead of mom.
Yeah, right.
I said, I'm having her on because I'm sure there's going to be another Michael.
There is another Michael. So we would have had to have this conversation, but we didn't have to have the conversation because you sent it to me ahead of time that you wanted to be Michael's Madre. So there you are. You're the first Madre, I have to say. We've had mamas, moms, and mums, mommies, but no Madre. So you're it.
Yeah, Madre is problem. Yep, I'm Michael's Madre. Yep.
Okay, I love it.
The little blonde, blue-eyed,
right,
Maine kid with a Maine accent, but he always called me Madre. So.
Well, thank you so much for sharing Michael with us today.
Thanks for listening. If you found this helpful and would like to support the podcast, please leave a 5-star rating and comment. To help financially, you can type Andy's Mom, one word, to the number 53555. This provides a link to GiveButter, which allows donations through PayPal, Venmo, Apple Pay, or credit cards. GiveButter will provide a receipt of your tax-deductible donation, or you can visit the donation page at andysmom.com/donate. Always Andy's Mom is a registered 501c3 and can receive donations through Thrivent Financial and Benevity. Marcy loves hearing from listeners. Please feel free to reach out to her via email at marcy@andysmom.com or on the Instagram or Facebook Always Andy's Mom accounts. Sign up for the email list to get weekly episode links as well as pictures of Marcy's guests and their children. Together, let's work to inspire hope, one day at a time.